Let's go ahead and get started. I would love to introduce Rita, our fearless leader and Sister District founder, and I'll hand it over to you, Rita Bosworth.
Thank you so much, Liz, and everybody. I'm so appreciative to our staff, and as Liz said, you can see them all because of the bright blue box behind their heads. They have been working so hard to put this event on and make it successful, and it's a bit challenging to do everything that we want to do virtually. So thank you to all of them, and if any of you get in conversation with them, please tell them thank you, because this was a tremendous amount of work. So, hi, and welcome to our 4th annual, but our first virtual summit. I want to thank you all for coming. As Liz mentioned, we have, I think, over 500 signups, which is just remarkable, and there's around 250 people on right now. So I guess the advantage of being virtual is that we can open up this wonderful event to even more people, and we're just thrilled that you're spending your weekend with us. Thank you again, and welcome. A couple weeks ago, I announced that I will be leaving Sister District this month after 4 years, and my co-founder, Lala Wu, will be taking over as executive director. And I want to start by saying the organization is going to benefit tremendously from Lala's vision and enthusiasm for building power in state legislatures. So this is a very exciting transition for our community. I will, of course, miss many things about working at Sister District. What we do here is powerful and significant, and I love that every day as we see our democracy come under threat, we do our best to meet the moment in a way that matters. And I really love this community of people, our team at Sister District, and all of you who believe in working together to create a society that cares about the common good, and who even in the face of adversity remain hopeful and take action. Since I announced my departure, so many of you have reached out to me with very kind messages and a lot of questions. So today, in my last official speech, I want to address some of the most common questions I've gotten in the larger context of my thoughts on what we have accomplished and where we need to go. So I first want to talk about the 2020 election. By far, the question I've gotten the most is, what do I really think about 2020? And my answer to this has evolved in the 3 months since the election. I will tell you that on election night, when it was clear that there would not be an obvious and robust rejection of Donald Trump, and when it started to look like not a single state chamber would flip, I was devastated. And I believe that we all wanted not only to win elections, but really to see the country that we love emphatically reject Donald Trump and all who followed him. And that didn't happen the way we wanted it to on election night. But the fact is that we won the presidency. After Joe Biden and Kamala Harris claimed victory, I started to feel enormous relief and joy, and I was taken back to election night in 2016 and reminded why we all started this work to begin with. Through the darkness, all the uncertainty, all the GOP lies, we did the most important thing, the thing that motivated us to action 4 years ago. And given how close the election was and how easily it could have broken the other way, I'm more convinced than ever that every single act that every single one of us and those like us across the country took made it possible to turn the page and usher in a new era of leadership. If we had not activated, mobilized, and made such noise over the past 4 years, it's possible we would be in a very different posture. And because this was such a chaotic election, with a pandemic, an insurrection, and a president who up until his last days threatened to topple the government, the fact that we have our first woman vice president almost felt overshadowed. But that is an achievement we must celebrate. We put a woman of color in the second highest office in the land, something we've never done before. So yes, this election was very much about getting Trump out of office, but it was also about progress and our positive vision for the future. What happened in state legislatures was obviously a disappointment. There's no other way to say it. Democrats didn't flip any state chambers in this critical year leading up to redistricting. But we have to remember that this was an election with unprecedented challenges. The country was in the middle of a raging pandemic, which significantly depressed the field operations of Democrats. Gerrymandering from the last cycle was still in effect, and it did what it was designed to do. There's still a tremendous awareness gap in that Democratic voters still do not understand the importance of voting all the way down the ticket. So these were challenging circumstances. It was always going to be difficult, even if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic. And we didn't get everything we wanted. But we need to look at what we did get. Over the past 4 years, we have helped win 70 elections for state legislators in key states. We have helped flip 5 chambers, create 3 Democratic trifecta states. And all of that has huge consequences. You've seen them. In Virginia, the new Democratic trifecta acted swiftly to expand access to voting and reproductive rights. They enacted common sense gun violence prevention measures, and they made Election Day a holiday. And these are just examples of the long list of things they've done. Colorado was able to pass the most sweeping police accountability bill in the country into law just 2 months after George Floyd was killed because they have a Democratic trifecta. Washington State banned conversion therapy. They passed the Equal Pay Act. They made investments to curb homelessness and bolster affordable housing. Our targeted, coordinated efforts made a tangible policy difference for millions of people. And even though we didn't flip any chambers in 2020, the states we were in, where we were helping get out the vote, states like Georgia, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, these states turned out to be wildly important, as we all know. So every vote we turned out mattered. And because of the work that we and others have been doing, Democrats are in a better position going into the 2020 redistricting cycle than we were in 2010. We obviously didn't get our wish list of results, but our efforts were meaningful. And just imagine what it would have looked like if we weren't doing this work. So we can't let what didn't happen detract from what we did accomplish. And now, the question that many of you have been asking me is, how do we move forward? Well, at Sister District, our theory of change has always run through the states. That is still true. With the Democrats holding a federal trifecta of power for at least the next 2 years, the Republicans will be pushing hard in states, and we must be there to answer. We must continue to win critical elections in key states because issues that states decide are going to continue to shape the country's future. For example, the Arizona legislature is proposing a law to permit the legislature to assign electoral college votes regardless of the result of the popular vote in Arizona. The Georgia legislature is proposing to eliminate no excuse absentee ballots and eliminate ballot drop boxes. You heard that right. They want to eliminate ballot drop boxes. South Carolina is about to pass a bill banning almost all abortions. These bills are a threat to everyone living not only in those states, but to all of us across the country. Because as we know, state policies are designed to spread to other states, and in particular, to change the law nationally now that there's a conservative Supreme Court. Republicans are going to continue to make outrageous power grabs in the states, and we must be there not only to stop them, but to continue to build progressive power where it matters most for ordinary Americans. This post-2020 landscape also clarifies that winning elections isn't something that just happens every 2 to 4 years. It is a year-round process. It's not simply a matter of reallocating our resources and solving voter suppression. Those things are obviously very important, but they're not enough. It requires deep organizing and investment in states. We have to expand our strategy knowing what we know now about the 2020 election. And for that, we looked to what worked. What happened in Georgia worked. Deep, year-round, in-state organizing and building infrastructure. Again, this is not something that happens overnight. It took Stacey Abrams 10 years, but her state delivered at the most critical point in modern history. So just think what organizing in states now will mean for the country in 10 years. It's that important. The question for us at Sister District is, how do we do that? Most of us don't live in a red state, and the answer is that we can't do all of it. There's some things that must be led from within the state. Stacey Abrams is a daughter of Georgia. What she did cannot be done by someone in California. We have some limitations. But there are organizers just like her in many red states that are doing the important work of year-round community organizing and building infrastructure. And what we can do and what we are equipped to do is support them. So that's one of the ways Sister District will be expanding this year. First, we will identify organizations that are doing critical organizing work, and then we will identify their needs and help them succeed. This is how we will continue to lift up the collective progressive voice in this country. We will, of course, continue our important electoral work, but we also recognize that this has to be effective and continue to meet the needs of our democracy. In order to do that, we have to expand our work and fill all the gaps in the state legislative ecosystem. Now, many of you have asked me what I've learned over the past 4 years. And as I look back, there is so much to say. But let me leave you with the 3 things that I'm going to continue to think about. First, the electoral infrastructure in this country continues to be a barrier to progress. The Electoral College gives outsized power to states with low populations. The House of Representatives and state governments continue to be plagued by partisan gerrymandering. The Senate gives vastly outsized representation to a clear minority of voters. And nationally, Democrats should be taking bold actions to reform those systems. But even under the existing infrastructure, we can make a change. There is always something to do to improve the circumstances. And building power in the states where ordinary people can have outsized impact is the most effective way to do it. Second, there's always a reason to be hopeful. The history of our country is riddled with injustice, but it is also brimming with people who are determined to fix it. And great change has resulted. As you all know, hope is not the same thing as optimism. It's not the belief that everything will work out okay. It is the acknowledgement that things may not work out, but that the worst case scenario is not inevitable, and that every day we are choosing which direction to take through our actions. And third, and I think I might have said this last year in my summit speech, we don't know what we don't know. Think about this. Almost exactly a year ago, we were gathered in Washington, D.C. in person for the summit. Donald Trump had just been through his first impeachment trial. Nobody knew what a coronavirus was, or that the next big fashion trend would be designer face masks. George Floyd had not been killed. We had not yet mobilized to march for Black lives in the streets. Justice Ginsburg was still alive. Nobody believed Joe Biden was going to win the primaries, let alone the presidency. And what we knew for certain was that there was no way the next 2 senators from Georgia would be Democrats. 4 years ago, nobody could have imagined or dreamed what the circumstances in the world would be today. And the landscape is shifting so rapidly these days that we can't possibly know what the future will bring. So we just have to continue to do the work. And even if we don't get everything we want when we want it, we must celebrate our victories, learn from our experiences, and chart a path forward. The work we do today at Sister District will prepare us for the opportunities that present themselves tomorrow, no matter what they are. Now, I know I'm preaching to the choir here because this group, this wonderful community of people, you understand this. You know that civic engagement is a lifelong commitment. You have seen the joy of victory and you've experienced the sting of defeat, and you know that no matter what happens, you pick yourselves up the next day and you get back to work. You know that hope is a discipline, and that as long as the sun rises again tomorrow, there is always another chance to make a difference. So I thank you all for your support of me and the organization over the past 4 years. It has been the experience of a lifetime, and I am thrilled that we are all going to continue in this journey for the years to come. And now I want to introduce Lala Wu, who is my co-founder and the next executive director of the Sister District Project. And I'm going to give her an introduction that she deserves, because Lala is wonderful, as you all know, and we are so excited that she's going to be leading this organization into the next chapter. Since 2016, Lala has served as the Director of Engagement and Partnerships at Sister District, where she built our volunteer infrastructure to over 150 teams and affiliates across the country. She has also led the expansion of Sister District's national partnerships, including with the DLCC, Emily's List, Run for Something, Supermajority, Swing Left, and Vote Save America, just to name a few. We are also thrilled that Lala will be the first woman of color to lead the organization, especially as we expand our partnerships with BIPOC-led organizations and reaffirm our commitment to equity and inclusion. Now, in addition to being intimately familiar with all aspects of the organization, Lala brings a deep understanding of the importance of state policy and the impact it has on people's lives. Before Sister District, she was an attorney at Morrison and Forrester in San Francisco and Kaplan, Kirsch and Rockwell in Denver. She specialized in environmental, clean energy, and land use law. So she knows how important this stuff is. She also served as a clerk to federal judges in the Northern District of California and the District of Boston. And she graduated from UC Berkeley School of Law and Barnard College of Columbia University. As you all know, she is based in San Francisco. And I am going to turn it over to our next executive director.